Mercedes are tearing up the concept of their car for 2024, with Toto Wolff admitting that the team needs to move away from what they've been doing for the last 2 years in Formula 1. The Silver Arrows have been playing from behind the 8 ball since the new aerodynamic regulations came into the sport 2 years ago. From no side pods to a slightly more conventional design last year, almost everything the team has tried has failed to see them fighting out at the very front of the grid, with Lewis Hamilton clearly happy to see the back of the 2023 season and the W14 car after struggling with it for the last 22 races. Now his team principal has admitted that changes are on the horizon for next year as they look to make up the ground on Red Bull Racing and fight for championships once again after 2 seasons with just 1 race win for the team. "We are completely moving away from how we laid out the chassis, the weight distribution, the airflow," said Wolff. "I mean, literally, there's almost every component that's being changed because only by doing that, I think we have a chance. We could get it wrong also, so between not gaining what we expect, catching up and making a big step and competing in the front, everything is possible. I have never in my life felt optimistic about anything. It may sound a bit miserable, but it's protected me about managing my expectations and just pushing harder. Because I think it's never good enough." Something has to change for the racing stable that have been synonymous with success in the sport during the turbo hybrid era, and 2024 will perhaps be one of the biggest in the team's history in deciding whether they can turn their fortunes around in the top flight of motorsport. Looking further ahead to the future, and Formula 1 has decided that teams will be unable to work on their 2026 cars until 2025 as the sport prepares for the change in engine regulations coming in that year. Before the changes to the aerodynamic regulations in 2022, a number of teams ditched development on their 2021 cars in order to shuffle funds around into getting ahead of the game and their competitors with their 2022 vehicles. Ross Brawn also admitted in the new Disney Plus documentary Brawn that his old team did something very similar before their surprise World Championship victory in 2009. The F1 Commission, in an attempt to protect the integrity of racing in the sport in 2024 and 2025, have decided to implement the rule that teams can't begin work on their new cars for 2026 and the eco-friendly engine regulations until 2025, encouraging constructors to keep working on their cars through 2024 and the start of the season after. Now, considering how things have worked out for Haas F1 this season, one of the teams that ditched development in the turbo hybrid era in order to jumpstart on the new evolution of Formula 1 cars, it may not be a good idea anyway, with Haas once again propping up the constructors' table. The ban will hit teams and the design of their cars, rather than the power unit suppliers, who are obviously already hard at work to develop their new power units for the new era. And finally, George Russell believes Formula 1 staff should be banned from working every race on the Formula 1 calendar, as the driver admitted to suffering from travel exhaustion and illness in the last few races of the year. F1 staff have had to deal with time zone changes, extreme changes in climate, and long travel days to get to the 22 races of the last season, with the calendar expanding to 24 races next year as the sport continues to grow across the globe. And although everyone is lucky to be involved in Formula 1, the toll it takes on the mind and body is too much for those that have to tick off every single race on the schedule. People are in the engineer's office just really struggling with the constant time zone shifts, the body not knowing where you are, eating at different times, staying in different hotels, different environments, different climates, said the Mercedes driver. The body's getting confused. I think there are talks for next year about personnel being regulated, that they can't do every single race. I think that would be a good thing. I don't think it's sustainable to have 4,000 people, I think, to do 24 races a season, especially when you see how geographically diverse the calendar is. It still doesn't make a huge amount of sense. Now, many teams do actually rotate members of staff during the season, but there are still some that have to go to every single race on the calendar. But as the schedule changes to become more time zone friendly for next year, the friendliest thing for the personnel and members of staff, according to Russell, is to ease the stress on individuals' travel across the season and put a ban on working every single race. We'll see if that comes into fruition moving forward in Formula 1. For all on that and everything else that's coming up in the off-season, get on to GPFans.com and GPFans Global across social media. And of course, hit subscribe down below to stick with us here at the YouTube channel.